Hi again, everyone, and welcome to Badger Breakdown, brought to you by U.S. Cellular. I'm Mike Lucas from UWBadgers.com. Subbing this week for Matt LePay is Patrick Herb from Athletic Communications. Nice seeing you at this level instead of on the sidelines where you do most of your work for the Wisconsin Radio Network.
Any chance to get outside on a day like today, I'm taking it. I hope Saturday, the home opener, is just like today.
I agree. Think about what we were talking about just a week ago, Patrick, and that is all the questions people had about the front seven on defense. Some of those were answered against LSU.
No question. The Badgers had to replace a lot of guys in that unit, and there were a lot of individual performances in Houston that really showed up on paper and on tape. Just look at the first half alone, where Wisconsin really held an LSU rushing attack, a strong attack.
A vaunted rushing attack.
No question. To 16 yards rushing on 15 carries. Things got away from a little bit the second half when they had some injuries to the defensive line, but there were some individual performances that really stood out. Marcus Trotter had 12 tackles, including 2.5 behind the line of scrimmage. Michael Caputo in the secondary had 15 tackles. The coaches think he had 20, which he might have. He was all over the field. And there were some down linemen that really held their own against a very veteran LSU offensive line.
I had my own questions about an undersized, inexperienced defensive front, how it would hold up against what Patrick was just suggesting, a veteran offensive line considered to be one of the best not only in the Southeast Conference, but in college football. But I was really impressed with the movement and the technique work that the Badgers utilized up front, especially after losing Konrad Zagzebski early in the game, and then really one of the heart and soul players on defense, Warren Herring, late. This was a duct tape unit.
Absolutely. That's a position that the team is already thin at. And then when you take two of the veteran starters and big guys who are hole pluggers at the nose guard position, that's a tough assignment for a kid like Arthur Goldberg to step into. Now, I thought he did okay. Saturday against Western Illinois will be a good test for him, and I'm anxious to watch how he holds up against a team that is also going to try and run the ball. They had success against Valparaiso last week, where they have two senior running backs that are gonna try and establish that part of their game, and he's a guy that I'm going to watch and see how he holds up, because he'll be thrust into a bigger position with Warren Herring out for at least a few games.
Badger fans should be excited by what they saw out of those linebackers. We've touched on it with Marcus Trotter and Derek Landish inside, and Schobert and Beagle on the outside coming off the edge. Very active, and I think they're going to be very productive throughout the season.
Yeah, that's a faster unit, just looking at from last year to this year. Now, you're never going to replace a guy like Chris Borland and everything he can bring, but there's a little bit different element to this year's linebacker core and how they can move in space, like you suggested. And Derek Landish is the guy that I think is going to be a big playmaker for this team, and he's got a little bit of a build like Chris Borland, and maybe he can kind of step into that playmaking role that Chris has now taken to the 49ers.
If there's any doubt about leadership, I think it all begins with Michael Caputo. You mentioned the 15, maybe 20 tackles. I think this defense will follow Caputo's lead.
Yeah, now he's going to have his hands full bringing along the other safety position, whoever ends up playing that. Lubern Figaro, the true freshman, had a big test.
He looked like a true freshman.
Yeah, and on that stage against that team, that's a difficult assignment for anybody, let alone a true freshman playing in his first game. Now we also saw Peniel Jean play a little bit in the opener, but that's going to speak to Michael Caputo's leadership, is how he can help bring along that other safety. And that's another thing that I want to watch against Western Illinois. They've got a quarterback who transferred from Cincinnati, so he's a big-time quarterback who threw for 320 yards and 4 touchdowns in their opener, threw to a lot of different receivers. They're going to try and establish the pass just like they are the run, and I want to see how they make adjustments in that back end.
For Melvin Gordon, the magic number is 140. He's reached that point and beyond quite a few times, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think 8 times in his last 13 games or something like that, which is tops in FBS football. He proved that he not only belonged on that field with an SEC speed and SEC toughness, he proved that he was as good or maybe better than that team. You would have loved to see him play a full 4-quarter game, but even with the touches he got, the 16 carries that he got, he was pretty special. And then it sounds like, knock on wood, he's healthy rolling into game 2, and he's been practicing this week and should be able to go 4 quarters foreseeably against Western Illinois.
I'm anxious to see how Tanner McAvoy plays in game 2. It's easy to forget that McAvoy is so very raw, so very inexperienced at the quarterback position, and made his collegiate debut at quarterback against LSU in that environment. There are certain strengths that are undeniable about McAvoy.
No question, and people will look at the stats and feel like he struggled, and in a way he did, but what an opening assignment for him, facing that team. So he will have obviously a different caliber of opponent this weekend, and maybe he'll be able to settle in a little bit more. He also won't be facing LSU's cornerbacks, who are probably the best unit Wisconsin will see all year at the defensive back position. So I'd like to see his wide receivers also help him out a little bit, get some separation in the tight end position, and maybe make a play or two that helps him out and gets him rolling early in the game.
This will be the last time that Wisconsin has an FCS opponent on the schedule for now. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's kind of a Big Ten initiative to increase the caliber of scheduling and kind of start weaning out some of those bye games, those guarantee games that have been played in the past. A lot of teams are playing it this season, but yeah, Wisconsin does not have any FCS opponents on its foreseeable schedule moving forward.
And Western Illinois will follow up and play another Big Ten team, Northwestern, yet this year. Western Illinois, to some, they will remember that Aaron Stecker left Wisconsin, went to Western Illinois, made a name for himself there, and then went on to a very productive career in the National Football League. This is Hall of Fame weekend in Madison, which is always a special time. Among the players coming back, Mike Kelly, who was a member of that first Final Four team with Dick Bennett, and then Chris McIntosh, a hulking left offensive tackle for Barry Alvarez. But it's a rallying point for a lot of people when you bring back some of your alums who have had great success not only on the field but in future life and in the world of business.
Yeah, I actually talked to Mike Kelly today, and he said Dick Bennett's going to be back here for the weekend, to kind of be a part of the ceremony, and some of his other teammates. I'm sure McIntosh will have many of his former teammates here too.
Yeah, they're all coming in town early to have a little reunion over at the AD's house.
But there are seven athletes going into the Hall of Fame. They'll be honored at halftime, I believe, of the football game. It's also just the home opener. That's an exciting time for everybody, just to kind of new life. It's a rite of passage for the new season, and there'll be some new things to see in the stadium too that I think people are really going to appreciate. There'll be free Wi-Fi for everyone in the stadium that everyone should be able to access. If you've been to games recently and you've tried to pull out your smartphone, you know that there's been problems with connectivity.
Will they help people with their smartphone? Because I'm constantly outwitted.
Well, smart people have to operate smartphones. So
we'll see if I know any. I don't know.
But in addition to that, though, there's 700 new TVs around.
700 TVs.
And there are a lot of endorsements for the stadium that are really going to make it a better experience, I think, for people coming to the game.
Final couple things that intrigue you, a storyline or two about Saturday's matchup with Western Illinois.
Like I said, I really want to see how if the receivers can make some plays in this game and kind of open up Wisconsin's passing game. In order for the Badgers to have success this season, they're going to have to throw the ball at some point. And so I would like to see them be able to make some plays. And additionally, on the defensive side, like I said, I want to see some of these young kids make plays. Arthur Goldberg's the guy who's going to step in and nose tackle. I would like to see some of these linebackers. Vince Beagle, I think, is a guy who maybe didn't show up a big time in that Houston game against LSU, but he's a kid who's going to make plays this season, and I think I have a suspicion Saturday might be one of those games. The Badgers had 3 sacks in that one. I think there could be more on tap for Saturday.
You'll help me with my phone if I ask?
I will.
Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate it. Had fun. For Patrick Herb, I'm Mike Lucas. Thanks for watching Badger Breakdown, brought to you by U.S. Cellular.